Hello everyone. If you like this audiobook and want to listen to more, please consider subscribing. And if you like this video, like it as well, enjoy.
Chapter 1. Dragon Knight Awakens. Harrenhal's stones eat men. It wasn't a joke, it was a curse the Riverlands had whispered for centuries. The Blackstone fortress squatted in the heart of the Riverlands like a sleeping beast. Kingspire Tower's spire stayed buried under permanent storm clouds. Ever since Black Heron roasted alive in dragonfire inside those walls, every lord who took the castle met a violent end. House Vance was butchered to the last soul. House Cahorus died screaming in a kinslaying bloodbath. House Harrenhal got poisoned at their own feast. All of them ended up as sad songs on a bard's tongue, proof that Harrenhal never let anyone win. Now the curse had landed on House Riveran. In the Lord's chamber high in Kingspire Tower, freezing winds sliced through stone cracks and carried the faint copper smell of blood. Davion lay on the massive oak bed, 17 going on 18, black hair plastered to a face the color of parchment. The softness of youth still clung to his cheeks, but his jaw already had the hard line of a man who'd learned the world bites back. A dirty linen bandage circled his head. Dark blood seeped from the edges and crusted on his split lips. Only the shallow rise and fall of his chest said he was still breathing. Davion's mind clawed through fog. Where the fuck am I? Why can't I move? He remembered clocking out, walking home, booting up Dota. Dragon Knight carry. His POS 5 support had wandered off jungling and left him solo. He'd clawed to level 2 after 3 miserable minutes. Pissed, he'd knocked over the coke on his desk. Then lightning flashed behind his eyes and the world went black. His senses still worked. Wind howled through the halls. Cheap candles stank of burning fat. But his limbs felt packed with lead. Eyelids weighed a ton. He could only thrash inside his own skull. Faint scraps of the old Davion's memories flickered past. Two voices cut through the dark. Wes, can you bring more firewood up here? The Lord's hurt and the wind's brutal tonight. We can't let him freeze. The girl sounded scared and urgent at the same time. She was terrified of the man beside her. Davion knew that voice instantly. Pia, the maid who'd served the old lord. Freeze. Pia never finished. A rough male voice steamrolled her. Wind's blowing. Nail the shutters tighter. Who knows if the little shit even makes it till morning. No point wasting firewood on a corpse. Empty lord's seat. Best thing that could happen. New rich bastard moves in, and me, the only one who actually knows every rat hole in this place, well, hey. Wes, the steward. Davion remembered more. Wes was a greedy, backstabbing snake who skimmed coin and gave the old lord nothing but lip service. The original Davion had been too spineless to stop him. That's why Wes strutted around like he owned the castle. The door creaked. Heavy boots stomped straight to the bed, bringing sweat and sour wine breath. Wes. Calloused fingers yanked Davion's eyelid open, then pried his cracked lips apart like he was checking livestock at market. The rough handling split Davion's lip wider. Fresh blood ran hot down his chin. Ha, fever's still cooking. Wes laughed and didn't even pretend to care about the new cut. Maester Toastmoy says 3 days, tops. Our dear Lord Riveran will be shaking hands with the 7 real soon. And when that happens, heh. Davion didn't know what Wes planned for when that happens, but it sure as hell wasn't good for him. Wes, you can't talk like that. Pia burst in with a water jug, voice shaking but still fighting. House Riveran treated us right. You're the steward, how can you pray for the Lord to die? She hurried to the bedside, poured steaming water into a clay cup, scooped some with a wooden spoon, blew on it, and held it to Davion's mouth. Warmth slid down his throat. Heat spread through his chest. His frozen muscles loosened. Control crept back inch by inch. Under the bandage the wound itched. Raw, healing flesh knitting together. Wes gave Pia a sideways leer, mouth curling into something ugly. You oughta worry about your own ass, girl. Once he's gone, what's a helpless little maid gonna do in this shithole? His eyes crawled over the swell of her breasts. I know a merchant in Riverrun who needs a warm body in his bed. You're pretty enough. Better than starving to death here. Pia's hand paused mid-pour. I'm not going anywhere. Harrenhal is home. I'm staying with the Lord. With Harrenhal. Riverrun, Harrenhal. The names hit Davion like a hammer. The old lord's memories slammed into place. He was Davion Riveran, Lord of Harrenhal. A few days ago he'd ridden out to squeeze coin from a vassal and caught a mace to the skull. Lights out. The real Davion was dead. This body belonged to him now. And this was the world of A Song of Ice and Fire. A blast of searing heat exploded from his chest and roared through every vein. The itch under the bandage turned into fire. Color flooded back into his cheeks. His body no longer felt like a corpse. He twitched his fingers, actually moved them. The darkness in his head vanished. A glowing blue interface snapped into view. Davion Riveran, Dragon Knight. Level 2. Experience. 123 hundredths. Stats. Strength 24, Agility 16, Intelligence 20. This is the Dota 2 screen. I'm actually a fucking Dragon Knight. His heart slammed against his ribs. Pure adrenaline drowned the panic. So he'd landed in a world crawling with liars, kinslayers, and ice zombies. Didn't matter. Raw power beat every scheme. He locked onto the skill panel. 3 icons burned bright. The fire in his blood answered them. Dragon Blood Innate. The divine dragon's lifeblood boosts health regen and armor. Effect increases 50% in Elder Dragon form. Extra health regen. +2. Armor bonus. +2. Slirak's blood runs through Davion's veins, granting double the vitality of any ordinary knight. Those 2 points of regen, that's what's healing me. He could feel it working. The wound was closing faster by the second. The bleeding on his forehead had stopped. Dragon blood was real. It had saved his life. Back in the game it was just numbers. Here it was keeping him alive. Davion had never felt anything like it. Chapter 2. Dragon's Breath. Dragon's Breath. Spew a blast of searing dragonfire that melts through plate armor like butter. Davion's breath has become the ancient fire of Slirak himself, the same flame that once turned an entire knightly order into charred corpses. Look at that description. I can actually breathe dragonfire now. I wonder how strong it is. If it's the real deal, nobody in all of Westeros could survive a direct hit, not even the others. Davion instinctively pulled on the power inside him. A hot rush filled his throat. He could almost picture the flames roaring out. He kept reading. Dragon Tail. The Dragon Knight slams his shield into a nearby enemy, stunning them and damaging anyone standing close. Davion has fused the gift of the Divine Dragon with a knight's brutal skill, making him unstoppable in close combat. He knew this skill well. In the game it was usually called Shield Bash. In human form the Dragon Knight fought with sword and shield. The move was simple: slam the shield into someone's face hard enough to rattle their brains. The technique flooded his mind. His arm tensed. Real power gathered there, heavy and lethal. One good hit would crack a skull like an egg. Then Davion noticed something important. The skill panel showed no mana cost. No cooldown timer. No way, these skills don't need magic in this world. It made perfect sense once he thought about it. This was reality. Dragons breathed fire. A shield to the head made you dizzy. Why would any of that cost mana? He looked at the last 2 skills. Both icons were grayed out and cold. Dragon's Fury. Locked. Elder Dragon Form. Locked. Heat flared in Davion's eyes. He stared at Elder Dragon Form, like it was the only thing that mattered. If he could unlock that, he could turn into a full-sized dragon and own the sky. Then the whole Riverlands, the whole continent, the whole damn world would tremble under his fire. He grinned. That ultimate is broken as hell. In the game you need level 6. Looks like I need to grind fast. His attention shifted to the item slots. 10 slots total, 3 across the top, 1 separate, then a smaller backpack row. Main inventory held. Healing Salve, the big green one, Clarity Potion, Blue Bottle, Quelling Blade, Last Hit Axe, Tango, Tree Eater, and 2 bracers. The backpack row was smaller and only stored stuff, nothing active. Sitting quietly inside it was a red cylinder. Davion focused. His jaw dropped. Motherfucker. Coca-Cola, how the hell did that come through with me? He stared for a second, then laughed under his breath. In a medieval shithole like this, having a cold Coke wasn't the worst thing in the world. Too bad there's only 1 can. Off to the side sat the neutral item slot, empty, of course. No jungle creeps dropping items here. And 1 round TP slot holding 2 scrolls. Davion's eyes locked on the healing salve. I wonder if this still works. My body's locked up, probably from the head wound. If it heals me, I'm golden. The moment the thought formed, the green salve icon lit up and vanished from the panel. Healing salve grants rapid health regeneration to the target. Even the worst wounds close in seconds with this magical salve. The empty slot now showed a timer. 167, 59, 58. A 7-day cooldown. That's fine. I can wait. Before he could even process it, a massive wave of life force slammed into the right side of his head. The dented skull and crushed brain tissue started knitting back together at insane speed. Davion counted silently in his head. When he hit 60, the healing stopped cold. His mind snapped back into his body like a rubber band. Pia's excited voice rang out right beside him. "My lord, your fingers moved." Wes kept digging in his nose with one finger, sneering. "Pia, you seeing things from hunger," Maester Toastmoy said. His words died in his throat when his eyes landed on Davion. The lord was awake, wide awake, staring straight at him with an unreadable look that made Wes's balls try to climb back inside his body. Wes had been steward since Davion inherited the title. The old Davion had always been soft-eyed and weak. Wes had never seen this kind of stare before. For a split second he thought the lord's pupils had turned into vertical dragon slits. He stumbled backward and crashed into the table behind him. Pia saw Davion's open eyes and squealed with pure joy. "My lord, you're awake. Praise the seven." She bounced on her toes, then rushed forward to check him. Davion felt power roaring through every muscle. He could probably punch a mammoth to death right now. He lifted a hand and gently pushed Pia's reaching fingers aside. "I'm fine, Pia." Then he threw off the covers and sat straight up. Wes went white as a sheet. He spun around, yanked the door open, and bolted. "I'll go get Maester Toastmoy." Davion watched him run, memories of the original lord fully merged now. He knew exactly what kind of snake Wes was. He'd heard every word the bastard said while he was dying. "Fat fucking pig, I'll kill you soon enough." He ripped the linen bandage off his head in one motion. Pia started to protest, then froze. The place where the wound had been was smooth, perfect skin. Even the hair had grown back to match the rest of his head. Her eyes went huge. The smile on her face got even brighter. "Seven save us." Davion looked at her and gave a small, genuine smile. "Pia, thank you for taking care of me these past days." She dipped her head, cheeks pink. "My lord, it was my duty. No thanks needed." Davion nodded, keeping it polite but not overly warm. He had too much on his mind. "How long was I out? How did I get back here? And Esser Villywood was hurt with me, what happened to him? Where is he now?" Chapter 3. This honor isn't yours yet. 3 days earlier, Wes had told the original Davion that Harrenhal's food stores were empty. They needed coin fast to buy more grain. The old Davion had no choice. He rode out with his only sworn knight, Esser Villywood, to House Vance to collect the 100 gold dragons they were owed. But House Riveran had fallen on hard times. All that remained was an 18-year-old boy who looked too soft to lead. House Vance didn't give a damn about him. They mocked him openly, voices dripping with sarcasm. The original Davion might have been timid, but he still had pride. Once they left the castle and guest right ended, he drew his sword in anger. That was exactly what House Vance wanted. Lord Raymond Vance, his 2 sons, and 3 guards surrounded Davion and Esser Villywood. They weren't planning to kill anyone outright, just teach the young lord a lesson. In the chaos, Davion stumbled, fell, and cracked his head on a rock. He went out cold. Pia lowered her eyes and spoke softly after hearing Davion's question. 3 days ago you were badly hurt and unconscious. House Vance took your horses. Esser Villywood carried you all the way back to Harrenhal on his own, even though he was wounded too. He collapsed the moment he reached the gates. Maester Toastmoy said he'd lost too much blood and had several broken ribs. Davion nodded to himself. That sworn knight is loyal as hell. He pressed on. Where is Esser Villywood now? Pia glanced at him nervously and opened her mouth, but no words came out. Davion felt the shift in the air. His voice turned sharper. Where is he? Pia bit her lip. Wes put him in the dungeon. What? Davion shot to his feet so fast the bed creaked. He knew exactly what the dungeon under Kingspire Tower was, a cold, wet prison cell. No place for a badly injured man to recover. Fury rolled off him in waves. Pia took 2 steps back without thinking. She hurried to explain. Wes said there's only enough medicine for you. Harrenhal doesn't have the coin for another dose. Dragon blood ran hot in Davion's veins. For a second he wanted nothing more than to carve Wes into 3 neat piles, fat, meat, and gristle. He forced a slow breath and kept his voice calm. I'm going to the dungeon to see Esser Villywood. Go find Wes and tell him to meet me there. Now. Pia noticed the change in him immediately. The soft, hesitant boy was gone. This was a lord. She nodded quickly. Yes, my lord, I'll fetch him right away. Davion stepped out first, still in his nightclothes, and started down the wide spiral stairs. Harrenhal's stone steps were broad and worn smooth from centuries of feet. The corridors were pitch black. The torch brackets on the walls were empty and thick with dust. Even the Lord's own tower couldn't afford torches anymore. He reached the ground floor but didn't head straight to the dungeon. Instead he walked out into the courtyard between Kingspire and the Widow's Tower. A small grove of elms and oaks grew there, wild and untended. Moonlight guided him to the trees. He focused, and a glowing green orb appeared in his hand, veins of living leaf visible inside it. He let out a quiet breath. Hope this works. Tango. Sacrifice one tree to gain a concentrated essence of life. Can heal severe wounds. A battlefield lifesaver. Players called it, eating a tree. Davion pressed the glowing orb against the nearest elm. Green light exploded outward, swallowing the whole tree. A second later the trunk shattered into sparkling motes that swirled back into his palm and formed a single vibrant green leaf. Raw life force pulsed from it. Davion smiled. He turned and ran back inside. The wooden door to the dungeon stairs groaned open. Cold, damp air hit him like a slap, mixed with the sharp copper smell of old blood. His pace quickened. The stone floor at the bottom was slick with puddles. His bare foot slapped loudly in one. "Fucking Wes," he muttered. He followed the blood scent down the row of cells. The first door he opened held Esser Villywood. Moonlight spilled through a tiny vent high in the ceiling and lit the knight's face. He looked paler than a white. Only a thin linen shirt covered his body, his armor was gone. His eyes were closed, lips twitching like he was trying to speak. Davion swallowed his rage, knelt, and gently lifted the man. Esser Villywood was light as a child. Blood loss had hollowed him out. Davion didn't even have the energy to curse Wes anymore. Only slow, creative dismemberment would satisfy him now. He brought the glowing leaf to the knight's mouth. Esser Villywood's eyes fluttered open. Feverish color bloomed across his cheeks. When he saw Davion, pure relief and joy lit his face. "My lord, you're alive. Esser Villywood, your courage saved my life. House Riveran owes you a debt I will never forget." The knight gave a weak laugh. "As long as you're safe, my lord. Dying for you would have been an honor." His voice was already stronger, cheeks pinker. Davion recognized the flush of someone burning their last reserves. He spoke fast. "I'm afraid that honor isn't yours yet, Esser. You still have many long summers of service ahead of you for House Riveran." Before the knight could answer, Davion pushed the leaf between his lips. It dissolved instantly. A torrent of life force exploded through Esser Villywood's body, knitting bone and sealing wounds in seconds. At that exact moment the dungeon door creaked open behind them. Wes stepped inside holding an oil lamp, Pia right behind him. Chapter 4. So angry he laughed. Wes walked in with a greasy smile plastered on his face. "My lord, didn't I tell you? House Riveran is blessed by the Seven. Our lord would never fall so easily." Pia followed behind him and rolled her eyes hard. What a two-faced bastard. That's not what he was saying an hour ago. Davion was busy checking Esser Villywood's wounds and didn't even glance at Wes. The steward's smile froze for a second, then snapped back into place. "My lord, this dungeon is cold and damp. You've only just recovered from a serious injury. You really shouldn't be down here, you could catch a chill. You know how tight things are at Harrenhal. We can barely scrape together coin for medicine as it is." Wes slipped into the same condescending, familiar tone he'd always used to push the old Davion around. He had no idea the man in front of him had changed completely. "Shut up." The words were quiet, but they cut through the air like a blade. Wes's mouth snapped shut, his beady eyes went wide with shock. In all the years he'd served, Davion had never spoken to him like that. The old lord had grown quieter and weaker as House Riveran declined. In front of other nobles he used to stare at his boots and stumble over every word like some peasant's kid. Now the same calm voice carried the natural authority of a high lord. Wes felt like he was standing in front of one of the great lords of the Seven Kingdoms. He swallowed hard and stayed silent. Davion pulled open Esser Villywood's shirt. The sword cuts on the knight's forearm and shoulder were visibly closing. Even the muscles that had started to waste away from dehydration were filling out again. Davion counted silently in his head. At 30, the powerful life energy vanished. Just like the healing salve, the effect stopped the moment the timer ran out. Esser Villywood's hollow cheeks looked fuller. Color had returned to his face and his eyes were bright with new energy. He didn't understand what Davion had given him, but the miracle that had just happened in 30 seconds was burned into his memory forever. The knight rolled to his knees and dropped into a perfect knight's salute. "My lord, Esser Villywood thanks you for your healing. Your kindness will be carved into my heart until the day I die. His voice cracked on the last words. For days he had drifted in and out of consciousness, fully aware he'd been left to rot in a dungeon after nearly dying to save his lord. Any man would have felt betrayed. But Esser Villywood knew the situation at Harrenhal. He believed the weak young lord would never have ordered this. It had to be Wes acting on his own. Now the same lord had appeared like a messenger from the Seven and saved him with some strange power. Esser Villywood was overwhelmed. Right then he would have charged House Vance's castle single-handed if Davion asked. Davion reached down and lifted the much larger man to his feet with almost no effort. How do you feel, Esser Villywood? Better than before I was wounded, my lord. The knight stretched, rolled his shoulders, even thumped his own chest. Then he sucked in a sharp breath and winced. Davion saw it immediately. Esser Villywood, where does it still hurt? Don't tough it out. The knight tried to stay strong, but under Davion's steady gaze his shoulders sagged. My lord, the ribs still ache. Davion nodded. Tree sacrifice only gave about a third the healing of the healing salve. Maybe it depends on the tree. What if I used a weirwood next time? Wes stared at Esser Villywood moving freely and his jaw dropped. His little eyes bulged. He knew exactly how bad the knight's wounds had been. Maester Toastmoy had said without medicine the man wouldn't last 3 days. That's why Wes had dumped him in the dungeon to die quietly. How the hell is he healed? And the lord woke up the same day. They must have used something I don't know about. Wes's eyes darted nervously. Congratulations on your recovery, Esser Villywood. Truly, the Seven are merciful. Maester Toastmoy said your wounds were beyond saving, but... Davion turned slowly and fixed Wes with a flat, empty stare. The same stare you might give a dead rat. Wes, I told you to shut your mouth. Did you not hear me? Wes opened his mouth to argue, but the look in Davion's eyes froze the words in his throat. The dungeon suddenly felt 10 degrees colder. Davion's voice was ice. Esser Villywood, teach this servant what happens when he forgets his place. At once, my lord. The knight stepped forward, towering over Wes, and swung his open hand. The crack of palm on fat cheek echoed off the stone walls. Wes's oil lamp hit the floor. Pia snatched it up before the flame could spread. A second slap followed, then a third. Then they came in a steady, merciless rhythm until Wes's face swelled like overripe fruit and the knight was breathing hard. Enough, Esser. Esser Villywood stepped back, breathing heavily, and took his place half a step behind Davion. Davion looked down at the swollen, whimpering steward. Who put Esser Villywood in this dungeon after he carried me home half dead? Wes's face was numb. The words tumbled out on reflex. My lord, you know how shorthanded we are. Pia was caring for you, and the only other person free was Maester Toastmoy's assistant, but she had kitchen duties. I asked who arranged it. Davion's calm tone sliced through the excuses. Wes's beady eyes flicked left and right. It was me, my lord. But you were unconscious. Someone had to make decisions. The dungeon is closer to the kitchens, so Maester Toastmoy's assistant could check on him more easily. You stuffed a loyal knight who nearly died saving his lord into this cold, filthy hole and you want me to believe it was for his own good. Davion let out a short, disbelieving laugh. Esser Villywood is the most loyal sworn sword House Riveran has left. You threw him in here to rot and you thought that was acceptable. He leaned in slightly. And where the hell is his armor and sword? Wes looked anywhere but at Davion's eyes. The dungeon is too damp, my lord. I was worried the steel would rust. Davion stared at him for a long second. Then he actually laughed. A cold, sharp sound with zero humor in it. Chapter 5. That damn fat pig. Davion shook his head, done with the whole mess. He wasn't wasting another second on a snake like Wes. Esser Villywood, drag this lying sack of shit to the bear pit. Then go to his room, grab your armor and sword, and find somewhere decent to rest. We'll sort the rest tomorrow. The bear pit sat in the heart of the castle, a 10-yard wide, 5-yard deep hole Black Heron himself had carved out beside the flowstone courtyard. Esser Villywood had served Harrenhal long enough to know exactly what that pit was for. He was more than happy to see the young lord finally grow some teeth and put the greedy bastard in his place. At once, my lord. Wes ignored the ringing in his skull and dragged his fat body across the floor until he was groveling at Davion's boots. My lord, I've been loyal to House Riveran my whole life. The family's been bleeding money for years, but because of me we're still standing. Davion took one calm step back so none of that filth touched him. He glanced at Pia. Funny how I almost forgot. Pia, Go with Esser Villywood and tear Wes's room apart. Find out exactly how many gold dragons this loyal steward has been skimming to keep himself fat as a pig. Davion stepped around the whimpering man and walked out. Wes kept banging his forehead on the stone, voice cracking. I bled for House Riveran. I've done great things for Harrenhal. Esser Villywood barked a short laugh and drove his boot straight into Wes's face. The steward's nose flattened into his cheek. 2 teeth snapped loose and skittered across the floor. Wes screamed and flopped like a landed fish, hands clutching his ruined face. Davion reappeared in the doorway. He didn't spare the rolling man a single glance. His eyes locked on Esser Villywood. One more thing. Throw that damn spotted bitch of his down there with him. The steward loves that dog more than anything, doesn't he? Before the knight could answer, Davion was gone again. Esser Villywood waited for Wes to roll into range, then stomped his boot down on the fat man's chest. Ribs cracked under the pressure. The knight smiled, cold and satisfied. Steward, quit flopping. Time to enjoy the private accommodations Lord Davion arranged for you. He kept the pressure on until the screams turned raw, then grabbed a set of leg irons from the wall, clamped one end around Wes's ankle, and started dragging the blubbering wreck out of the cell. Let's move, Lady Pia. Pia stared at the pathetic sight on the floor. There wasn't a trace of fear in her eyes, just sharp, vicious satisfaction. Wes had never respected Davion, let alone the maids. He'd beaten and cursed every servant like he owned the castle. Watching him hauled out like a slaughtered hog felt better than she'd ever admit. She nodded hard, almost bouncing on her toes. Yes, Esser, I'll get the door, take it slow. Davion returned to his bedchamber high in Kingspire Tower. Great lords of House Riveran had ruled from this room for centuries. It should have been rich, warm, alive with color. Instead it held only a single oak bed, a desk, and one battered chair. Sparser than the cheapest room in a King's Landing brothel. The once beautiful stained glass windows were gone, replaced by cheap wooden planks. Every gust of wind outside sent cold drafts slicing through the gaps. Wes had once suggested Davion move down to the 3rd floor and seal off the upper levels. Not enough hands, not enough coin, he'd said. The old Davion had refused. He still remembered the glory days, tourneys that drew kings, princes, and every great lord in Westeros. He could still feel his uncle Esser Oswell Riveran of the Kingsguard lifting him onto broad shoulders so he could meet the king. Those memories had kept the old lord stubborn. Moving down would have felt like admitting House Riveran was finished. It would have killed him. Davion lay back on the hard bed and let out a long breath. Big dreams, shit reality. No strength and every ideal turns to dust. I'm not some dreamer like you were. I'm a man who gets shit done. One bite at a time. One step at a time. Rush it and you'll trip over your own balls. Food first. Step 1. Get us living like human beings again. Gold dragons. Where the hell do I find enough gold dragons? Right. Tomorrow I drag that maester in here and find out how big this domain really is, how much coin it brings in, and why House Riveran's in the gutter. And whether he's worth keeping or if I should write the Citadel for a replacement. House Vance, you're going to choke on what you did. When I finally turn into a full dragon, the forests of Westeros will whisper my name, Dragon Knight Davion. He drifted off still planning. High above Westeros a blood-red comet blazed across the night sky, brighter than the moon, its long tail painting the land crimson. North of the wall, in the haunted forest, the three-eyed raven felt the shift. He sent his mind into a crow perched outside the cave. The bird's black eyes reflected the comet's bloody glow. Time's wrong, the old man whispered. Someone's changed the future, my plans. Aldtown, the Citadel. Maester Marwyn watched the green glass candle on his desk flare with an eerie, sickly light. Magic, he breathed, voice shaking. Magic has returned. Far across the narrow sea, in the free cities, Melisandre lifted her face to the sky. The red comet burned in her eyes. Her crimson robes whipped around her like living flame. Her lips curved in fierce, hungry joy. After the long summer the stars weep blood. Cold darkness will cover the world. This is the Lord of Light's holy fire, the sign that Azor Ahai is reborn. Chapter 6. Time to get ready. Davion woke early the next morning. Pia had been waiting outside his door for a while. The moment she heard him stir, she came in carrying a basin of warm water. She set it down, slipped out, and returned with a tray of bottles and jars. My lord, the water's ready. You can wash up now. Davion nodded. Pia watched him wash, then went out again and came back with breakfast. By the old Harrenhal standards, this whole routine would have taken 5 or 6 maids working together. The Lord never would have lifted a finger for something as simple as washing his own face. But House Riveran had fallen too far, too fast. Most of the castle lay in ruins. Even keeping the remaining sections patrolled had once required 600 or 700 men. Now the entire household could be counted on 2 hands. So Pia did everything herself. Davion finished washing and sat down to eat. On the plate sat a chunk of black rye bread, hard as a rock. Beside it was a bowl of watery oatmeal porridge so thin you could see the bottom. He frowned at the meal but kept his face blank and shoved the stone-like bread into his mouth anyway. No time to be picky. Having something to eat at all was a win. Pia stood nearby, looking like she was dying to speak. Davion glanced at her. "What is it, Pia? Something on your mind?" Her face lit up instantly. "My lord, I searched Wes's room last night. He really did steal a fortune, 79 gold dragons and 82 silver stags, all hidden in a clay pot under his bed. Can you believe it? That bastard kept lying about not having coin for grain." She pulled a heavy pouch from behind her back and offered it with both hands. "Here, my lord, this is everything we found." Davion took the pouch and weighed it in his palm. Something felt off. If Wes had only been skimming household expenses, there was no way he could have hidden that much. He had to have another source of income. Davion shook his head and let it go. The most important thing today was riding to House Vance. A big pile of gold dragons was waiting there with his name on it. After breakfast he headed to the armory. Calling it an armory was generous. The room was nearly empty. A few spears and swords leaned in one corner beside a heap of rusted, useless plate armor. Davion had expected this, but he still sighed as he looked at the junk. He dug through the pile until he found a sheathless shortsword that might still cut and an old shield painted with House Riveran's sigil, a golden field covered in 9 neat rows of black bats. The plate armor was too far gone to bother with. He settled for a sleeveless chainmail shirt and pulled it on. His earlier confidence took a serious hit, but the thought of the rich reward waiting after he crushed House Vance lit a fresh fire in his chest. He had just stepped out of the armory when Esser Villywood and Pia came running toward him, faces tight with worry. Esser Villywood spoke first. "My lord, where are you going?" Davion tapped his shield with the sword. "To pay House Vance a visit and settle the score, of course." Both of them wore the exact expression he expected. Esser Villywood's voice was urgent. "My lord, your wounds have only just closed. Rest a few more days before you ride out." He was too polite to say the young lord was too weak for this and would probably get himself killed. Pia was blunter. "My lord, if you go to House Vance like this you won't get anything but hurt again." Davion knew the truth. Right now he was basically semi-invincible. His stats said it all. Strength 34, Agility 20, Intelligence 24. That was base plus the 2 bracers, plus 5 Strength, plus 2 Agility, plus 2 Intelligence, plus 0.75 Health Regen, plus 50 Health. Esser Villywood probably sat somewhere under 8 Strength. Davion was already 4 times stronger than a real knight, and the gap only grew wider with every extra point. His technique was still rough. He might take a hit or two, but he had 2 tree sacrifice leaves left in his pack and, as a final card, Dragon's Breath that could melt steel. House Vance's idiots wouldn't stand a chance. He couldn't say any of that out loud. They'd think their lord had lost his mind. So he laughed. "I'm only joking. I'm just heading out to drill some swordwork and pick up grain at the market." Simple. Trusting Pia believed him at once. Esser Villywood still looked suspicious. "Relax, Esser Villywood. I'm not about to gamble with my own life." "Pia, help Esser Villywood back to his room so he can rest." The knight studied Davion's face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "But if you decide to ride for vengeance, my lord, take me with you. I'm ready to give my life for House Riveran." Davion smiled and sighed. "Tisk, now that's what you call a real fucking knight. If I ever sit the Iron Throne, I'll make damn sure you get a lordship." Chapter 7. House Vance. Greystone Keep, seat of House Vance. The Vance family sat around a long table enjoying lunch. Their meal put Davion's breakfast to shame. Fresh white bread, oatmeal sweetened with honey, stewed beef, roasted trout, and beef pie. Roasted onions and a spinach-on nut salad on the side. Mint tea and hot milk for everyone. Even at midday, Lord Raymond Vance was already drinking ale. Raymond was a tall, broad-shouldered man in his early 50s. narrow eyes that never stopped calculating. He drained his cup in one go, waved for the serving girl to refill it, and spoke. "Well, Elton, any news from Harrenhal?" Elton, Raymond's eldest son and heir, was loud, arrogant, and loved his drink just like his father. He often took a few men-at-arms out to harass the small folk, especially those on Harrenhal land, after a few cups. Elton grinned around a mouthful of food. "Nothing new yet, but 2 days ago that fat pig Wes swore to me the little bastard wouldn't last the week. I paid 5 gold dragons for that promise. I trust the fat bastard wouldn't dare lie to me." Raymond slapped the table and roared with laughter. "Ha, good lad, Elton, keep your ear to the ground and speed up claiming those rented lands into our own domain." Harren Vance, the second son, was a gloomy, cautious young man. Living under his violent older brother had made him timid and careful. He looked up at his father. "Father, Lord Davion is still our liege lord. If word gets out that he came here to collect a debt, got wounded, and died, won't that hurt our house's reputation? And even if we seize the land now, any new lord will just make us give it back." Raymond had never liked this weak second son. He shot Karen a disgusted look. "Karen, learn from your brother. Harrenhal isn't what it used to be. House Riveran has only that one little bastard left. Remember, he and his sworn knight walked out of Greystone Keep alive and whole that day. His death has nothing to do with us. When he's gone we can decide whether those lands were rented or sold. No witnesses. What can a new lord do about it?" Elton smirked at his brother. "My sweet, stupid little brother. Even if Harrenhal gets a new lord, his house won't be strong enough to take anything back. No ancient family would abandon their ancestral seat just to move to that cursed pile of rocks." Karen lowered his head, eyes burning with hatred. "Two museum-piece idiots. Did they think they're ironborn? You can't just refuse to return a liege lord's land." A guard stepped into the hall and leaned close to Raymond. "My lord, Earl Riveran has arrived again." Raymond blinked. "Who?" "Lord Davion Riveran." Raymond gave his eldest a strange look. Elton frowned. "You're sure? Davion Riveran is standing outside." "Yes, young master." "Fine. Get out." Elton waved the man away irritably. The moment the guard left, Elton slammed his fist on the table. "Fuck, that lying fat pig Wes. I'm going to see for myself." He wiped his mouth on his sleeve and strode toward the doors without bothering to grab a weapon. Karen's mind raced. He had seen Davion's skull cave in that day. How the hell was the boy alive and back at their gates only 3 days later? Outside Greystone Keep, Davion stood quietly before the gates, sword in one hand, shield in the other. The guards on either side stared at him with odd expressions. His equipment really was pathetic. Davion's face stayed calm as he studied the keep. This place might belong to House Riveran soon. After a few moments he felt nothing but disappointment. Greystone Keep wasn't even as big as one tower of Harrenhal. This was the true strength of a minor house like Vance, maybe 50 guards and servants at most. Only Harrenhal's greater ruin had let them push so hard. Elton appeared with 2 spearmen flanking him. He stopped in front of Davion, eyes widening for a split second when he saw the lord's face. Then the arrogant mask snapped back into place. He looked Davion up and down. "Tisk tisk, Harrenhal really is that broke? My lord can't even scrape together proper gear." Davion's voice was steady. "House Riveran's affairs are none of your concern, young Vance. But in a few days I'll have brand new armor." Elton snorted. "What brings you here today, my lord?" Davion straightened. "I'm here to collect the 100 gold dragons House Vance borrowed from me 3 years ago. You promised repayment within 1 year. 2 years late now, plus interest, that's 150. On top of that, 5 years of unpaid annual tribute plus interest brings the total to 2,000 gold dragons. I'll wait right here. You have 1 hour to gather every last coin. Fail, and the consequences are on you." Elton stared, then burst into loud, mocking laughter, clutching his stomach. "Ha ha 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 ha, my lord, are you joking? Gods, that's the funniest thing I've heard all year, my stomach hurts." Davion kept his warm, pleasant smile. "Young Vance, does this mean you refuse to pay?" Elton was still bent over laughing. Davion's smile slowly widened. "Perfect," he said softly. "Finally I can act." Chapter 8. Why aren't you laughing? Elton was still bent over laughing. He hadn't heard a single word Davion said. He looked up, confused. "What?" Davion didn't answer. His right arm swung the longsword in a hard upward diagonal cut. Elton's stupid grin was still plastered on his face when a hot, sticky spray of blood hit him. His pupils shrank to pinpoints. His body locked up. In his vision, the guard to his left had just been split clean in half. The blade had entered at the left arm, carved straight through the torso, and burst out the right shoulder. Bone, organs, and blood spilled onto the ground. The head, still attached to half a shoulder, thumped down right in front of Elton's boots. Only then did Elton snap out of it and let out a raw scream. Ah! He dropped onto his ass and started scrambling backward on his heels, legs kicking wildly. Davion never slowed. He poured every ounce of strength into his shield arm, dropped his shoulder, and slammed forward into the second guard who was still trying to react. Dragon Tail. The Dota 2 skill made its first appearance on the continent of Westeros. The guard had barely started to raise his spear when Davion's shield filled his vision. Too late to dodge. Boom! A sickening crunch of bone and metal. The guard's right arm, still gripping the spear, got driven straight into his own chest by the shield. The entire body flew backward like it had been hit by a mammoth, sailing more than 5 yards before crashing to the dirt. Davion flexed his left fist and glanced at the pristine shield. His smile grew wider. If the first guard's death had scared Elton shitless, the second one broke him completely. Impossible. I must have drunk too much at lunch. This is all a hallucination. That little Riveran bastard can't be this strong. Elton forgot to run. He just sat there staring at the ground, muttering to himself. Davion walked over, sword in hand. He lifted his left foot and gently tapped Elton's chest with the toe. Elton toppled onto his back like a felled tree. Davion planted his boot hard on the man's chest and pinned him to the ground. The warm smile never left his face. Young Vance, why aren't you laughing? Was my joke not funny enough? Elton's lips kept moving, but no real words came out. Davion chuckled softly. He pressed the rusty sword tip against Elton's left shoulder and began to push. The blade had sat too long in the armory without a scabbard. Rust covered most of it. But the point was still sharp. It sliced through the shirt, skin, and muscle with ease. The sudden pain finally brought Elton back to reality. Ah! He stared at the rusty blade in panic. My lord, spare me. I'll go get your money right now. Davion shook his head. That's not the answer I asked for, young Vance. He drove the sword the rest of the way through the shoulder and into the ground beneath. Elton's body jerked rigid. His right hand instinctively grabbed the blade. His legs kicked wildly against the dirt. Davion pulled the sword free and rested the tip on Elton's right shoulder. No, 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 don't. My lord, by the seven, please spare me. I was wrong. I'll never do it again. Davion suddenly thought of something hilarious and shook his head with a laugh. There's an old saying that fits perfectly right now. You're not sorry you were wrong, you're sorry you're about to die. The blade punched through again. This time Elton didn't scream. He passed out cold. Useless piece of shit. Esser Villywood took 2 swords from you lot and still carried me all the way back to Harrenhal. Davion casually stabbed each of Elton's legs once for good measure. He wasn't about to let his new prize run off. The 2 guards who had been at the gate were already gone, running inside to raise the alarm. Davion didn't care. He'd just used Dragon Tail and quickly calculated. As long as he kept enough stamina to fight, he could use the skill another 6 or 7 times. House Vance had fewer than 30 fighting men including Raymond himself. Davion was confident he could walk away clean. The more they send, the better. Maybe they'll drag the whole family out here and I can end this in one go. While he waited, he pulled the frosty Coca-Cola from his inventory and drained it in one long pull. Ah, refreshing. Cold happy water really is the best. He let out a satisfied burp. Then he opened the game interface. Experience. 133 hundredths. Killing one ordinary guard had given him 10 points. Davion raised an eyebrow. Fuck. 5 points per person. To hit level 3 I still need to kill 34 more. Where the hell am I supposed to find 34 people? He glanced at Greystone Keep and shook his head. No, I'm not a fucking murderer. Wiping out everyone inside, what kind of bullshit is that? Less than a minute later, hurried footsteps echoed from inside the keep. Lord Raymond Vance came running out with 2 squads of spearmen. They spread out and quickly surrounded Davion in a loose circle. Every man held his spear ready, eyes locked on Davion, though their gazes kept flicking nervously to the headless corpse on the ground. Davion didn't flinch. He simply rested the sword tip against Elton's throat. Raymond stared down at his son lying in a spreading pool of blood, brows drawn tight. My lord, why did you injure Elton? Davion thought privately, this old bastard's got ice in his veins. His son's life is hanging by a thread and he's still talking calm as you please. He shrugged. I told him to pay what he owes. He didn't want to. That's all. Let me repeat what I just told your son, Lord Raymond. 2,150 gold dragons total. You have 1 hour to gather every coin. Fail, and the consequences are yours. Raymond looked at Davion like he was staring at an idiot. My lord, House Vance never said we wouldn't pay. Our family's funds are simply tight at the moment. We ask for a little more time. Davion smiled and shook his head. 1 hour is all you get. Raymond studied him carefully for a long moment. 3 days ago this boy had barely been able to speak above a whisper. Now the old tricks weren't working. My lord, you're still young. There's a saying you may not have heard. The wind may enter, the rain may enter, but the king may not enter. It means a nobleman's private property is sacred and inviolable. Even as our liege lord, you have no right to barge in here and injure my son. Davion's face went completely blank inside. Where the fuck did this old public intellectual crawl out of? Did he come from my world too? That bullshit only works on peasants. I'm an earl and you're feeding me this crap. Damn old bastard. Chapter 9. Experience points surging. Davion met Raymond's gaze without blinking. Lord Raymond, you're joking. All I know is this land is House Riveran's fief. Without House Riveran's favor, you'd still be herding pigs somewhere right now. You. Raymond's face twisted. Rage exploded in his chest. In that instant he finally understood. Davion was done playing games. He clenched his fists, heart pounding. What the hell is this little bastard relying on? It's only been a few days and he's already this bold. Davion had run out of patience for this bullshit. Lord Raymond, shouldn't you be inside collecting the money right now? Why are you still stalling? The words snapped Raymond out of his thoughts. He took a deep breath and asked in a low voice. My lord, are you really going to force House Vance today? Davion waved both hands, putting on an innocent smile. No, 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 Lord Raymond, how can you call it forcing? Debt must be repaid, it's only natural. Besides, I haven't even added the medical fees for me and Esser Villywood yet. I'm being very considerate of House Vance. With all this time for talk, you'd be better off hurrying up and gathering the coin. Otherwise your heir might bleed to death right here. As he finished speaking, Davion dragged the sword lightly across Elton's neck, opening a thin red line. Blood welled up immediately. Raymond's heart lurched. His fists tightened. He loved this eldest son because the boy acted just like him. But he loved shining gold dragons even more. If the eldest died, there was still Karen to inherit. If the money disappeared, it would hurt 100 times worse than killing him. After a moment of calculation, Raymond gritted his teeth and stepped back. His expression instantly shifted to righteous outrage. He shouted at the surrounding guards. Lord Davion injured Greystone keeps rightful heir without any cause. His actions are mad and lawless. I have reason to believe he has lost his mind. Seize him. In a few days I will personally deliver him to Riveran for the Duke's judgment. Davion's eyes flashed with mockery. There's no such thing as the most shameless person in this world, only more shameless. Wes's shamelessness isn't even fit to lick this old bastard's boots. Raymond Vance, I thought you were only pretending to be stupid. Turns out you're truly blinded by greed. You dare commit such treason against your own liege lord. Davion shook his head, voice full of mock regret. As your liege, allow me to teach you what a noble's duty really is. The moment the words left his mouth, Davion exploded toward Raymond Vance. His speed was beyond anything the men around him could process. They only saw a blur. Davion was suddenly right in front of Raymond. At the same time, a massive boot came flying. Crack. The kick slammed square into Raymond's broad chest. The big man flew backward, hit the ground hard, and coughed up a spray of blood. Davion hadn't used full strength. Gold came first, killing came second. Instead of chasing Raymond, Davion turned on the circle of guards. In his hands the shield was no longer just for defense, it was deadlier than any spear or sword. Every swing sent a man flying and knocked others off their feet. The longsword in his right hand was even crueler. Each swing removed a body part, heads, arms, half a torso. 10 seconds. In 10 seconds Davion had killed 11 guards. Experience. 185 300ths. When the remaining guards finally reacted, their first thought was to run. Lord Davion isn't human, he's a demon. I've never seen anyone kill this easily. Most of them were already broken. They dropped their spears and bolted in every direction. Davion watched their backs and did the math. 9 left, 5 times 9 is 45 experience points. Sorry, boys, 45 is just too tempting. He dropped the no-dulled longsword and set the shield aside. He grabbed a spear from the ground, braced it with both hands, and snapped the sturdy shaft in half with a sharp crack. He adjusted his stance, cocked his arm, and hurled the spearhead half like a javelin. Then he threw the blunt half right after. 2 sharp whistles split the air. The guards hadn't even made it 20 yards. The first half-spear punched clean through one man's back and burst out his chest. The second shaft followed, slamming into the wounded guard and driving him forward another 2 yards. Davion nodded in satisfaction as another 5 experience points popped up. He repeated the motion again and again. The air filled with the sound of spears whistling through the sky. Every throw found its mark on a fleeing guard. Roughly a minute later, the last man collapsed in a pool of blood. Experience. 233 hundredths. Leveling up is actually pretty easy. And there are plenty more minor houses that don't respect House Riveran besides just Vance. Davion picked up his shield and walked over to Raymond, looking down at him with something close to pity. Raymond coughed up another mouthful of blood, finger trembling as he pointed at Davion. He knew House Vance might be finished. Davion sighed. Lord Raymond, you're a fool, but your way of doing things follows a certain logic. As long as you're strong enough, rules can't bind you. Just like Aegon the Conqueror. With 3 dragons he could marry 2 wives, his own sisters, and no one could stop him. Davion waved a hand. Why am I even telling you this? You wouldn't understand anyway. He bent down and pulled the sword from Raymond's belt. The blade was beautifully maintained, polished to a mirror shine, with intricate golden-laid patterns on the cross-guard and a pigeon-egg-sized ruby set in the pommel. Pure Nouverish swagger. Davion nodded in approval, unbuckled the scabbard, and strapped it around his own waist. When he looked up again, a slim figure stood on the castle wall, peering down. Davion recognized him, Raymond's second son, Karen. His original plan had been to kill the male heirs and leave one alive to ransom. But seeing Karen on the wall, a new idea flashed through his mind. Whether it would work depended on if Karen was smart enough to know when to bend. Davion raised a hand and waved him down. Karen hesitated for a moment, then hurried off the wall. Davion raised an eyebrow and nodded. Looks like House Vance still has at least one smart person left. Chapter 10. Lord Karen. Karen sprinted straight to Davion and dropped to his knees with a heavy thud, forehead slamming into the dirt. He didn't spare his father a single glance. Greetings, my lord. His voice was tight, his whole body shaking. This time he was betting everything. Davion watched him and nodded to himself. So it's young Karen. Why didn't you come out with your father? Karen didn't dare lift his head, but the calm tone still sent a shiver through him. My lord, you jest. I never approved of what my father and brother were doing, but my position in House Vance is too low. No one listens to me. I had no choice. The words were a clear attempt to cut ties with his father and brother. But Davion wasn't satisfied. Oh, is that so? Then what brings you down here now, young Karen? Karen's mind raced, trying to read the deeper meaning. He clearly called me over himself, why is he asking like that? He was a smart man. In a few heartbeats he figured it out. His heart skipped. Is this what I think it is? It has to be. Whatever happens, I'm all in. Karen raised his head just enough to stare at Davion's knees. My lord, I'm willing to compensate you for every loss and apologize for all of House Vance's past disrespect. Davion's brow furrowed. Karen's words were deliberately vague. Taken at face value, he was begging Davion to spare his father and brother. Read the other way, he was saying his father and brother had wronged Davion first and could be dealt with however the liege lord wished, while he, Karen, would personally cover every coin of the debt. Davion thought privately, smart people always leave themselves an escape hatch. Even their probing has to stay fuzzy. He wasn't having it, his voice cooled. What exactly do you mean by that, young Karen? I don't understand. Say it again. He paused, then added, and make it the last time. Karen's stomach dropped. I was already being this direct, how does he still not get it? No, he understands perfectly. He just wants me to say it clearer. More brutally. Once he realized that, Karen relaxed. It meant Davion intended to back him as the new head of House Vance. But if he said it too bluntly, the story would spread across the entire Riverlands by tomorrow. Karen clenched his jaw, mind tearing itself apart. After more than half a minute he slammed his forehead into the ground again, then crawled forward on his knees and wrapped both hands around Davion's worn leather boot. He kissed it gently. "My lord, I, Harren Vance, swear on my blood and honor. House Vance will serve House Riveran generation after generation, with everything we have, through life and death, never to betray you." His voice trembled with emotion, but the words were iron. Raymond, lying nearby, heard it and spat a mouthful of blood. He pointed a shaking finger at his son. "Harren, you're only the second son. Your brother is still alive, you have no right to inherit Greystone, let alone speak for House Vance." Harren gave a cold laugh and glanced back over his shoulder, eyes icy. "Father, you still don't understand the situation. You and my brother have no future. I will be the only heir of House Vance." Raymond struggled to push himself up, face purple with rage, and spat blood-flecked saliva at him. "Harren, you're dreaming. I'd give Greystone to your sister before I'd give it to you." Harren ignored the outburst and turned back to Davion. Davion looked genuinely surprised. "You have a sister? I hadn't heard." It wasn't Davion's fault. The original lord had never paid much attention to the minor houses in his domain. "My sister keeps to herself, my lord. It's normal you've never met her." Then an idea struck Harren. "My lord, I offer my sister to you. She can represent House Vance and serve at your side." Davion rubbed his chin, interested. "Is she pretty?" Harren's face lit up. This was his chance. Fair skin, delicate features, she's a true beauty. And she had her first blood last month. She's ready to warm your bed. Davion caught the wrong note immediately. "Stop. Don't say another word. How old is she?" "She'll be 12 in a few months." Davion slapped his forehead. "Westeros really does have low standards. No need for the bed. Just keep her as a maid. Harrenhal is short on hands anyway." He wasn't doing this because she was pretty. Definitely not. Harren beamed. "Thank you, my lord. My sister is a hard worker too." Davion waved him off. "Enough, Lord Harren. No need for all that. Get up." The moment Harren heard the word, "Lord," he excitedly kissed Davion's boot several more times before standing, face glowing with joy. Davion continued. "First, prepare an 8-horse carriage. War horses only." Harren's eyes widened. Greystone Keep only had about 16 usable warhorses. Davion was asking for half of them. But he couldn't refuse, not when he was counting on Davion to eliminate his father and brother. Davion kept going. "Also, prepare 5,000 gold dragons." 5,000, Harren gasped. Davion chuckled, warm and friendly. He stepped forward, slung an arm around Harren's neck, and spoke quietly into his ear. "Lord Harren, you're a smart man, unlike your greedy, stupid father and brother. But deep down you're exactly the same. You don't believe in oaths or loyalty either. Neither do I. So our relationship is safer if we keep it about money. Think about it, 3,000 gold dragons buys you a lordship. That's a hell of a bargain." Harren felt like he'd been dropped into ice water. He suddenly understood he had completely misread the young lord. Davion had always been clear. He wanted both blood and coin. And Harren had played right into his hands. But the oath had already left his mouth. Everyone inside Greystone Keep had heard it. There was no going back. He looked at Davion's warm, smiling face and nodded numbly. Davion patted his shoulder. "That's more like it, Lord Harren. Go get everything ready. I believe you'll handle it quickly. You have half an hour." Chapter 11. Toying with the heir. Harren nodded with difficulty. He turned and walked toward Greystone Keep, cursing under his breath the whole way. "Damn it, you squeezed 2,000 gold dragons out of my father and then hit me up for 5,000. 1 hour for him, but only half an hour for me. You're a real bastard." Davion watched his back with a slow, knowing smile and let out a quiet chuckle. He grabbed the dying Elton, dragged him across the dirt, and dumped him right on top of Raymond. The older man groaned once and went still. Davion sat down on the pile like it was a throne. Harren's obedience level just kept surprising him. 20 minutes later the man came barreling out of Greystone Keep driving an 8-horse carriage. He pulled it to the side, face bright with a sincere smile, both hands clutching a heavy money pouch as he hurried over. He offered it with both hands, respectful as hell. "My lord, I tore the whole keep apart. This is everything, 4,600 gold dragons and 200 silver stags." Davion took the bag in one hand and gave it a couple of testing bounces. "This cash has real weight." Harren's eyes went wide. He knew exactly how heavy that pouch was. He'd barely been able to carry it with both hands. Davion handled it like it weighed nothing. Davion kept talking, voice easy. Lord Karen, it's not quite the full amount. Don't sweat it, this little bit of coin. Nothing worth worrying over. I'll give you a month to scrape the rest together. Take your time, I'm not in any rush. Karen's cheek twitched, but he forced a smile anyway. Thank you, my lord. Praise your mercy and generosity. Davion stood up and stretched. Elton rolled off him onto the ground. Davion looked down at the bleeding heir like he'd just remembered something important. Oh, right, Lord Karen, since you owe me money, collecting a little interest wouldn't be out of line, would it? Not at all, not at all. Perfect, you're going to be a much better vassal than your father ever was. He pressed the longsword into Karen's hands. Elton's lost too much blood. He's probably already with the stranger. But I'm not sure he's fully gone. Do me a favor, test it with this sword. What do you mean, my lord? Shouldn't you? Davion grabbed his arm, yanked him forward, and cut him off. Nervous, I think he's pretty much dead already. Look at all that blood, enough to fill 2 milk buckets. Just stab him anywhere. But, Karen's voice cracked. He looked at Davion's smiling face and the ice in those eyes and felt his courage melt. Davion took hold of his hand and guided the sword tip to Elton's right chest. Come on, Lord Karen. Push it in hard. Do it and I'll forget about the interest on those hundreds of gold dragons you still owe. Karen finally understood. Davion didn't want the bad reputation of killing his own vassal. But I already publicly betrayed my father. Now you want me to murder my own brother too? Karen screamed every filthy curse he knew at Davion inside his head. Still, he didn't dare fight back. His hand stayed frozen on the hilt. Lord Karen, do it. Davion's voice was calm, but it hit like a dragon roaring right in his ear. Every scrap of dignity and calculation Karen had left shattered. His arm moved on its own. The blade stabbed down hard. Elton's eyes flew open. He let out a raw, wet scream. Ah! Blood sprayed from his mouth as he grabbed the sword with both hands, staring at his brother with pure hatred and disbelief. Karen jerked back in horror, tripped over Raymond's body, and fell hard, right onto the older man's crushed chest. Bones cracked loud enough for everyone to hear. Davion frowned, all fake concern. Lord Karen, what the hell are you doing? Quick, check your father. Are his ribs broken? He yanked the sword free from Elton's chest and slashed it across the dying man's throat in one smooth motion. No way was he letting someone else steal those 5 experience points. Karen's mind was cracking. Davion Riveran, he's a fucking monster. Playing with people's hearts, forcing brothers to kill each other. Turning father and son against one another. He's the devil himself. Davion stood over Raymond, both hands resting on the sword hilt, looking down with something almost like pity. Raymond Vance, such a shame. I was going to drag you back to Harrenhal for a real trial. Never thought you'd die under your own son's ass. A death like that has to be one of a kind in all of Westeros. Enjoy the glory. He drove the blade straight through Raymond's throat. The older man's eyes stayed wide open, locked on Davion even as the light left them. Karen stared at Davion in pure terror, voice shaking. My lord, are you going to kill me next? Davion looked genuinely surprised. Lord Karen, why would you think that? We've only just built a deep friendship, and this unbreakable bond of gold between us. Why in the world would I kill you? You wound me, thinking like that. Karen let out a shaky breath and tried to smile. His lips just twitched. 2 tears rolled down his cheeks. Then, suddenly, his mouth curved into the brightest, most broken smile Davion had ever seen, brilliant and miserable at the same time. Davion watched him and thought, shit. Did I push him too far? Is he actually losing it? I should have used a different method. Too late now. I can't kill him yet. Harrenhal's short on hands. I still need him to keep an eye on Greystone. Once I've got enough men of my own, I'll come back and take over. Then your life is mine, Lord Karen. The original Davion didn't forget it was you 3 who attacked him that day. Davion pulled the sword free, slid it into its scabbard, and climbed into the carriage. A girl around 10 or 11 sat inside, wearing an ill-fitting noble dress that had clearly been thrown on in a hurry. She stared straight ahead with a blank expression, eyes wide as she took in the bodies on the ground. Davion studied her and nodded to himself. Those eyes, like a true main character's. Probably got a tragic story. Bullied since she was little. Karen gave her up so damn fast. Her relationship with her father and brother can't be good. Doesn't matter to me. She's just a maid, I'll hand her over to Pia when we get back. Wait, she could be Lady Vance someday. Chapter 12. A True Knight. According to the laws of Westeros, if no male heirs remained, a woman could inherit everything a house owned. Davion quickly killed the thought. No time to raise some little girl. In a few years Daenerys would come riding her dragons across the narrow sea. The Riverlands would turn into a slaughterhouse. A Vance brat wouldn't change a damn thing. No choice. House Vance was doomed to vanish from history. With that settled, Davion leaned out the carriage window and waved at the lone figure by the gates. Goodbye, Lord Karen. The carriage rolled away from Greystone Keep. Karen Vance stood frozen in place, the cold bodies of his father and brother at his feet, blood already soaking into the dirt. His eyes were empty, his heart had gone ice cold. He knew his own life had just started counting down. When Davion's carriage neared Harrenhal, Ser Villywood and Pia stood on the battlements watching the road. Harrenhal had lost every shred of its old glory. These days the castle barely spoke to other nobles. Any stranger could mean death. The moment they spotted the unfamiliar carriage, both of them ran down the steps and sprinted for the gate. Ser Villywood snatched up a headless spear on the way, eyes locked on the approaching vehicle. The carriage stopped. Davion's face appeared in the window, wearing that faint, easy smile. Only then did the two of them let out the breath they'd been holding. "My lord, where did this carriage come from?" Pia asked, still wary. Davion didn't answer right away. He just waved them closer. "Get in, we'll talk inside." Ser Villywood, drop that broken spear. This thing's too small for it anyway. Ser Villywood blinked, exchanged a look with Pia, then both climbed aboard with puzzled faces. The carriage started moving again and rolled through Harrenhal's wide, unguarded gates. No sentries stood on either side. Nobody remembered exactly when the castle had grown so empty. Once there had been enough men to guard the gate in shifts. Now they couldn't even raise the drawbridge or close the doors properly. In the end they'd just left the drawbridge down and the gates open day and night. No point pretending they had anything worth defending. Inside the carriage, Pia's eyes went straight to the small girl huddled in the corner. "My lord, you still haven't answered me," she said, voice low, gaze flicking between Davion and the girl. "And who is this child?" Davion's mouth curved into a meaningful smile. "Nothing dramatic. House Vance just had a little family disagreement. I hear Lord Raymond's second son, whether he went mad or something got into his head, killed his own father and older brother. That would be Lord Raymond and young Elton." "What?" Ser Villywood and Pia both gasped, faces blank with shock. Davion put on a perfectly measured look of regret and shook his head. "I was stunned when I heard it too. As Earl of House Riveran and their liege lord, I couldn't just ignore something like that happening on my lands. So I rode back to Greystone Keep. Luckily Lord Karen had enough sense. Not only did he pay every coin he owed, he gave me this carriage as a gift." He pointed at the girl in the corner. "And he sent his own little sister to serve as my maid." Pia and Ser Villywood's mouths fell open. The shock slowly turned into outright disbelief. They both knew exactly what kind of men the Vances were. They also knew exactly what kind of man Davion was. The last time he'd visited Greystone Keep he'd come back half dead and Ser Villywood had nearly bled out in a dungeon. How the hell had everything flipped this hard, this fast? Davion watched their stunned faces and laughed inside, but kept his expression perfectly serious. "Don't say you don't believe it, I didn't either at first. But the proof is right here. The carriage, the girl." He reached into the money pouch beside him and pulled out a fistful of gleaming gold dragons. "And the gold." Pia's eyes went wide. "Wow, so much money." She clapped a hand over her mouth, voice shaking with surprise. Ser Villywood had never been much for scheming. Straightforward as a spear, he looked at the gold, heard Davion's story, and every doubt vanished. He believed every word. Davion hadn't exactly lied, just smoothed over a few details. The gold was what mattered. He counted out 100 gold dragons, split them, and handed 50 to Pia. "Pia, from today on you're Harrenhal steward. These dragons are yours, use them to run the castle. When they're gone, come ask for more." "Really, my lord?" Pia's hands trembled as she took the coins. She could barely speak. "But I'm too stupid. I don't know anything. I'm afraid I'll mess it all up and disappoint you." "Don't sell yourself short, Pia." Davion waved the worry away. "I trust you, and I brought you a helper. From now on this girl answers to you." He glanced at the wide-eyed child and thought, Harrenhal's basically a ruin now. Running a ruin doesn't exactly require a genius. Davion turned and held the other 50 dragons out to Esser Villywood. The knight's eyes flicked over the gold, then locked firmly on Davion. Without hesitation he shook his head. "My lord, what is this? I can't accept these gold dragons." Davion studied him for a long moment, genuine approval in his eyes, and slowly nodded. "You really are a true knight, Esser Villywood. In House Riveran's darkest, hardest days you stayed with us. You kept your oath. That kind of loyalty can't be bought with any amount of coin. These dragons are just a small token of thanks. Of course, next to your loyalty they're nothing. But as your liege lord I've failed to give you the life you deserve. All I've brought you is hardship and wounds. That sits wrong with me. So you will take them." Chapter 13. A Knight's Oath. Davion's voice turned hard. Before Esser Villywood could refuse, he shoved the gold dragon straight into the knight's arms. "And I promise you this, there will be more gold dragons filling your pockets soon. One day you'll have lands of your own, small folk who answer to you, and a proper knight's holding. Hell, you'll grow House Villywood into one of the great families of the Riverlands. I swear it on the honor of House Riveran." Esser Villywood clutched the coins like they were the most precious things in the world, terrified they might slip from his hands. Hot tears spilled down his cheeks and splashed onto the gold. The 20-something sworn knight's face flushed deep red with emotion. He carefully set the dragons on the carriage seat, then rose, dropped to one knee, right hand over his heart, and looked Davion dead in the eye. His voice rang out, carrying through the carriage and into the empty sky above Harrenhal. "I swear by the Seven, on my honor as a knight and on cold steel. I, Villywood, pledge myself to Lord Davion Riveran of House Riveran. From this day forward my sword swings for you, my shield stands for you, and my life is yours to command. I will serve you faithfully, obey every order, defend you from every enemy, guard your lands and your name with everything I have. No betrayal, no divided heart, not for hardship, not for gold or any other temptation. This oath holds until the day I die. The gods bear witness." Esser Villywood clenched his fist and slammed it against his left chest with a heavy thud. Even though the blow sent pain shooting through his old rib wounds, he didn't flinch. His eyes stayed fierce. He had spoken these words once before, when he swore to Davion's mother, the Lady of House Riveran. Back then he had been a desperate hedge knight taking the oath just to put food in his belly. There had been little real loyalty in it. This time was different. Davion's trust and promises had lit a fire of real hope in his chest. This loyalty had nothing to do with survival or profit. It came from a knight's honor and the gratitude of a lord who truly saw him. Esser Villywood steadied his breathing, lowered his head, and moved to kiss Davion's boot, the old Westerosi way for a knight to show absolute fealty. Davion stopped him. He gripped the knight's shoulders and held out his right hand instead. Esser Villywood took it with both hands, reverent, and pressed a solemn kiss to the back of it. The carriage finally rolled to a stop in Harrenhal's central courtyard. Pia climbed out first and sent the limping stable hand to lead the 8 horses to the stables. Once the animals were settled she dismissed the driver, then she and Esser Villywood carried the pork and beef Davion had bought at the market into the kitchens. Davion glanced around the empty yard. "Tonight the 3 of us eat in the Hall of 100 Hearths." Pia and Esser Villywood both froze for a second, then nodded. The Hall of 100 Hearths had once been the heart of Harrenhal, the grandest room in the castle, big enough to feed an entire army. In the family's glory days it blazed with light every night and laughter echoed through every corridor. Now it was just a vast, hollow shell. They walked inside. Faded, torn tapestries hung on the walls. Where long tables and benches should have stood, only a single small square table remained in the center. The whole hall felt cold and lifeless. Davion took the lord's seat. Esser Villywood hesitated, then sat beside him. Pia perched awkwardly on the other side. Soon the kitchen clattered with activity. Pia brought out tender stewed beef and a glistening, roasted ham hock still sizzling with fat. The rich smell filled the empty space at once. Pia and Esser Villywood stared at the meat like starving wolves, throats working, swallowing hard. Neither of them could remember the last time they'd eaten real meat, maybe a year ago, maybe longer. Davion smiled at their faces. "Dig in." Pia reached for the knife to carve the ham for him, but Davion waved her off. "Don't bother with me, I like eating it with my hands." He grabbed the huge shank, tore off a massive chunk with his teeth, and chewed without a care as grease ran down his chin. Esser Villywood saw his lord acting like a common soldier and dropped every trace of knightly dignity. He snatched the other shank and tore into it with the same savage satisfaction. Pia tried to stay proper at first, cutting small, careful pieces with the knife. But watching the two men devour their food like animals, she gave up, grabbed the shank with both hands, and started gnawing. It was the best meal any of them had eaten in over a year. After a long while Davion wiped his hands and mouth with a napkin and spoke. Pia, tomorrow I want you to talk to the local pig and sheep herders. Have them deliver 1 pig and 1 sheep every 2 days, and 1 cow every week. Also hire more serving girls and laborers. This place is far too quiet. Pia was still wiping her mouth when a loud burp escaped her. Her face turned bright red and she clapped a hand over her mouth. Yes, my lord, first thing tomorrow. Davion nodded and turned to Esser Villywood. Esser Villywood, now that we have gold we can't leave a castle this size without patrols or guards. Starting tomorrow I want you to recruit some men-at-arms, 20 to begin with. We can afford to feed them. Esser Villywood straightened at once, voice respectful. Yes, my lord, I'll choose the strongest and most loyal men I can find. You won't be disappointed. Davion stood, tossed his napkin on the table, and clapped Esser Villywood on the shoulder. I trust you, Esser. He walked toward the doors, calling back over his shoulder. Pia, send Maester Toastmoy to my chambers later. The word, chambers, still carried a sting of embarrassment. Harrenhal was falling apart. The old solar had been abandoned long ago. These days the only place left to receive guests was his bedroom. In Westeros the maester was a strange and vital profession. Every noble house with lands kept one. They served as everything at once: private advisor, doctor, teacher, and administrator. They counseled lords, wrote letters, treated wounds and illnesses, taught noble children, and kept the castle's books and supplies in order. In short, a maester was indispensable. Davion wanted to see Maester Toastmoy for 2 reasons. First, to learn the exact state of House Riveran's lands and incomes. The original Davion had known nothing about them, and if he wanted to rebuild Harrenhal he needed the full picture. Second, to test how much loyalty the maester still had for him and for House Riveran. After all, Davion hadn't laid eyes on the man since the moment he woke up. Chapter 14, The Stubborn Old Maester. Davion didn't have to wait long before a soft knock sounded at the door. Come in. He leaned back in the chair beside the bed, eyes on the doorway. The door opened and Pia helped an elderly white-haired man inside. The old man moved with obvious difficulty, every step labored. Pia kept a firm grip on his arm, clearly worried he might fall. Davion recognized him at once. This was Maester Toastmoy of Harrenhal, the family's longtime scholar who had served since Davion was a boy. Toastmoy looked about 60, thin and slightly hunched, yet still a full head taller than Pia. His skin was unnaturally pale from years spent indoors with books. He wore a faded gray maester's robe, clean but worn at the hem, and around his neck hung the signature chain of linked metal rings. Only 3 different metals gleamed there, proof he had mastered just 3 disciplines. Not a grand maester by any means, but more than enough for a house like House Riveran. Davion knew the rules of the chain but didn't care which metal meant what. What caught his attention was the old man's condition. His steps were unsteady, his breathing labored. The man was clearly very sick. Pia guided Toastmoy to the small table and helped him sit. The maester bowed his head slightly, voice hoarse. My lord, you sent for me. Davion's brow furrowed. In his memories Toastmoy's voice had always been clear and strong. This raspy, dry tone told him the old man's health was worse than he'd feared. Maester Toastmoy, are you unwell? His tone softened. He gestured to Pia. Help the maester sit down first. Thank you for your concern, my lord. Toastmoy nodded and settled into the chair with Pia's help, coughing twice and wincing. From the moment the maester entered, Davion had been studying him closely. Besides the labored breathing and the coughs that made him frown, Toastmoy's face stayed carefully neutral, his eyes calm. Only when he looked at Davion did a flicker of something, curiosity, perhaps, appear. Davion gave him a mental label, an old-fashioned, pedantic scholar. The judgment eased some of his earlier prejudice. Men like this poured their lives into knowledge and study. They rarely schemed or allied with snakes like Wes. Once Toastmoy caught his breath, Davion spoke. Maester Toastmoy, I asked you here because I want to know the exact state of House Riveran's lands and our current situation. Toastmoy's eyes had been drifting over Davion's head the whole time, full of quiet wonder. He knew exactly how severe the head wound had been. By all rights the boy should be dead. Yet here he sat, awake, alert, and looking stronger than ever. The maester was burning with curiosity about how Davion had survived and recovered so fast. When Davion spoke again, Toastmoy snapped out of it, pushed the questions aside, and gave a small nod. "My lord, House Riveran's borders are clear. East to the King's Road, west touching the lands of House Smallwood at Oak Hall, north reaching the town of Harroway, and south covering half of God's Eye Lake. As for our situation, I believe you already feel it deeply, my lord." Davion quickly ran the numbers in his head and allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. The territory was larger than he'd expected. With proper management it could easily support Harrenhal's slow return to strength. He brushed past the maester's pointed remark and changed the subject. "What are your thoughts on Harrenhal's future? If I want to rebuild this place and grow our lands, what would you suggest?" Toastmoy studied Davion for a long moment. He finally realized the young lord sitting before him was nothing like the timid, uncertain boy he had known. The old Davion had never once asked about developing the lands. This sudden shift was startling. After a thoughtful pause the maester answered, "My lord, if you wish to strengthen our holdings, the first step is to become hard. In the Seven Kingdoms the strong devour the weak, that is the only law that matters. Only with real military power can you deal with other houses, protect your lands, and keep your small folk safe. Force has always been the foundation of every noble house. Without it, even the largest lands and greatest wealth are just meat for others to carve." Pia entered quietly with 2 cups of honey water and set them down. Toastmoy took a long drink, easing the dryness in his throat, then continued. "Once you have enough strength to hold what is yours, you can choose a profitable trade and begin building wealth. Any suggestions for the right business, maester? Your lands are blessed by location, my lord." Toastmoy pointed toward the window. "We sit beside God's Eye and the Red Fork. The plains around us are rich with grass and water, perfect for livestock. Raise chickens, sheep, and cattle. It will feed the castle and the surplus can be sold in nearby towns for gold dragons. Beyond that, Harrenhal lies at the very center of Westeros, a natural crossroads. God's Eye connects to the Blackwater Rush and straight to King's Landing's port. The Red Fork reaches Gulltown. Whether you head south or cross the narrow sea to the free cities, travel is easy. Once your strength is secure you could even develop river trade and shipping for even greater profit." Davion nodded slowly. Everything the maester said lined up with his own thinking. Harrenhal had been built to capital standards from the start, its geography was its greatest strength. Still, all of it required peace to grow. And this was the Riverlands, Westeros's eternal battlefield. Every major war turned these lands into a slaughterhouse. Fields would burn, livestock would be stolen by passing armies, and years of careful wealth would vanish overnight. But the maester was right about one thing. Without the power to protect what they built, none of the plans would matter. Military strength had to come first. In this age of cold steel, 50 fully armored knights could dominate most places in the realm. Chapter 15. Tourney Gold. Davion spoke with Maester Toastmoy for a long time after that. The old man answered every question clearly, everything from the exact number of small folk on their lands to the situation with neighboring houses and the castle's current stores. Davion grew more certain by the minute that Toastmoy was a pure scholar. His mind held nothing but his research, healing the sick, and fulfilling his duties as a maester. Politics, intrigue, and family power plays held no interest for him at all. His answers came flat and steady, like lines from a textbook, correct, but never surprising. As the conversation wound down, Davion spoke again. "One more thing, Maester Toastmoy. I need you to write several letters. Send them to every noble who still owes House Riveran money, and to those who've stolen our small folk and seized our lands. Demand they pay what they owe, return every person they took, and give back every acre they stole. Make the wording harsh." Toastmoy thought for a moment. "My lord, forgive me for saying so, these men will not simply hand over gold and land because of a letter." Davion smiled with quiet confidence. "That's fine, just send them." "Understood, my lord." "Good, it's getting late and you're not well. You should rest." Davion waved a hand at Pia. "Pia, see Maester Toastmoy back to his chambers. Be careful on the way." "Yes, my lord." Toastmoy rose slowly, bowed, and let Pia guide him toward the door. Just before they left, Davion called out, "Oh, one more thing, Pia. When you have time, hire some craftsmen and have every occupied room fitted with proper glass windows. We can't keep blocking them with wooden planks forever. They block the light and lead in the cold." Yes, my lord, I'll remember. A week slipped by without anyone noticing. The letters Maester Toastmoy had sent vanished without a single reply, exactly as the old man predicted. Davion didn't mind at all. In fact, he felt quietly satisfied. He hadn't wanted their answers. He had only wanted to give them fair warning. In the days to come, whatever action he took against them would now be completely justified. While the Maester's side stayed quiet, Esser Villywood's search for guards moved painfully slow. After a full week of riding from village to village around Harrenhal, he returned with only 5 men. Still, each one was tall, broad, and strong, nearly as big as Esser Villywood himself. The knight's strict standards had probably scared off plenty of others. Davion didn't care about the low numbers. What mattered was the message. He wanted everyone to see that House Riveran was rising again and would no longer be pushed around. He treated the 5 new guards like gold, full sets of fresh equipment, daily meat, and all the ale they could drink. Within days they were swearing they would live and die with Harrenhal. Davion only smiled. He knew this loyalty was bought with full bellies and warm beds. The real test would come when the castle faced true hardship again. Pia, on the other hand, had exceeded every expectation. In one short week she hired 6 or 7 quick-handed male servants and more than a dozen young, hard-working maids. Under her direction they cleaned Kingspire Tower and the Hall of 100 Hearths from top to bottom. The place finally looked like something other than a ruin. At lunch that day Davion sat with Pia, Esser Villywood, and Maester Toastmoy in the Great Hall. After they finished discussing work, Esser Villywood shared the gossip he'd picked up at the tavern in Harroway. "My lord, I think I finally know why I can't find any guards." Davion took a sip of ale and grinned. "Oh, is it because your standards are so high you scared everyone away?" Esser Villywood scratched his head, embarrassed. "My lord jests. I just don't want useless cowards. But this time it really isn't my fault. I think every skilled fighter in the area has gone to King's Landing. King Robert is holding a massive tourney to celebrate Prince Joffrey's 15th nameday. The biggest one anyone's seen in years." Davion's mind flashed back to the legendary tourney Harrenhal had hosted years ago, knights from every great house, lances shattering, armor ringing, horses screaming, the crowd roaring. He pushed the memory down and asked, "Tourneys are for knights, aren't they? How does that affect my guard recruitment?" Esser Villywood shook his head. "My lord, it's not only noble knights who enter. Every big tourney draws sellswords and hedge knights from across the realm. They come hoping for a chance. If they're lucky a great lord might notice them and take them on as sworn swords. If they win against famous opponents they can earn a name, and sometimes even a lordship with lands and small folk of their own. And they love Robert's tourneys most of all," Esser Villywood added, voice full of longing. "The king is the most generous. His prizes and gifts are far richer than anyone else's. More importantly, if you catch his eye he might knight you on the spot. A knighthood from the king himself, that's worth more than any gold." Davion nodded slowly. "So they're all trying to be the next Esser Duncan the Tall, win glory in the lists and change their lives forever." "Exactly, my lord," Esser Villywood said eagerly, "and this year the prizes are the biggest anyone's ever seen. 25,000 gold dragons for the champion of the joust. 15,000 for the melee champion. 25,000, 15,000. Davion's eyes lit up the moment he heard the word, gold. The 4,000 dragons from House Vance were already running low. Repairs, wages, daily expenses, they wouldn't last long. Now, out of nowhere, a river of gold had just appeared. He did the quick math in his head. If someone swept both the joust and the melee, that's 40,000 gold dragons in one go. Pia nearly choked on a piece of beef. She grabbed her ale and drank fast, eyes wide with shock. 40,000 gold dragons, King Robert must be drowning in money. Maester Toastmoy set down his knife and fork. "Little Pia, don't forget, our queen is a Lannister. The Lannisters sit on more gold than most men can count. They own the mines of the Westerlands. A few thousand dragons mean nothing to them." Davion stayed quiet. He knew the truth. Robert might look generous, but the crown was drowning in debt to both the Lannisters and the Iron Bank. All those lavish prizes were just show, spending money he didn't have to keep up appearances. Davion didn't care. All he could think about was what 40,000 gold dragons could buy for Harrenhal. He stood up so fast his chair scraped the floor. "Pia, get the carriage ready. I'm going to King's Landing." Chapter 16. The Dragon Knight hits King's Landing. King's Landing sat at the mouth of the Blackwater Rush where it spilled into the sea, built along the river and backed by the bay. Aegon the Conqueror had landed here with his dragons and hammered the 7 kingdoms into one. He named the place King's Landing and made it the capital. Davion had wrapped up business at Harrenhal, packed light, slung his sword across his back, and ridden south alone along the King's Road. The map had lied. 15 days of dust, rain, and hard miles later he finally rode through the old city gates a week before the tourney opened. He led his exhausted warhorse into the twisting streets, asking for a decent inn. Somehow they got turned around. The horse stopped dead in front of a fancy storefront and refused to move another step. Head down, nostrils flaring, it was done. Goddamn locals, Davion muttered. Ask for directions and they send you the wrong way every time. Don't they see the Riveran sigil on my cloak? He looked up. Tall dark wood doors carved with vines and flowers. Red glass lanterns already glowing soft pink under the eaves. He knew that look anywhere. The doors swung open. Laughter spilled out. A voluptuous dark-skinned woman in a low-cut dress stepped out arm-in-arm with a silk-clad nobleman. She kissed his cheek. He laughed, squeezed her ass hard, and disappeared down the alley still grinning. The woman turned, spotted Davion, and her eyes sharpened. She clocked the sigil and the noble bearing in one quick sweep. Shatter smiled like a cat that just found cream and swayed straight over, hips rolling. Long ride, my lord. Looking to unwind, she slipped her arm through his before he could answer and pressed her full, warm body against him. You came to the right place. Shatter's got the best girls in King's Landing, Bravos, Lee, Summer Islands, Volantis. Clean rooms, no street trash. You'll leave smiling. Davion almost laughed. Pink lanterns and carved doors. Brothel. Every world had them. Dragon blood had been riding him hard lately. His appetite and stamina were ridiculous. Every night on the road he drilled swordwork for hours just to burn it off in sleep. Now one thought filled his head. I want 10. He looked her over. Mid-30s, hourglass figure, narrow waist, wide hips, dark skin but delicate features and sharp, knowing eyes. Exactly his type. He slid an arm around her waist, feeling the soft heat through the thin fabric. All right, boss lady, let's try it, but I've been on the road for weeks and I'm filthy. Private room and a bath first. Shatter's smile widened. Another highborn hooked. Her place catered to nobles. King Robert had visited more than once. Littlefinger had offered her a fortune to buy it. She always said no. The real value was the secrets powerful men spilled between the sheets. That was worth more than gold. She called a stableboy, told him to take Davion's horse to the back stables and treat it right. Then she led Davion inside herself. The scent hit him first, expensive perfumes, warm and layered, not cloying. It washed the road dust out of his lungs in one breath. The main hall was dim. In the corner a group of girls lounged in sheer silks, every skin tone from pale to deep bronze, hair in every shade from gold to silver to chestnut. Davion's eyes drank it in. Shatter took him upstairs to a lavish private room. Thick crimson velvet curtains embroidered with gold hung on the walls. Soft wool carpet swallowed every footstep. A massive carved bed dominated the center, buried under crisp white satin sheets and fat pillows. Gilded candelabras flickered everywhere, casting warm, suggestive shadows. The air felt thick with heat and promise. Chapter 17. Davion's all-night orgy. Shatter knelt gracefully and helped Davion pull off his dusty boots. After days on the road his feet carried a strong scent, but she never flinched, face perfectly respectful the whole time. Davion gave a small nod of approval. He flipped his wrist and 30 bright gold dragons appeared in his palm, pulled straight from his game inventory. He slipped 2 of them into the warm valley between her breasts. The cold metal made her shiver, then her eyes lit up with pure delight. He handed her the rest. Go get some hot water. I want a bath. Shatter clutched the heavy coins, heart racing. Sharp eye on this one, generous young lord. She bowed quickly. Yes, my lord, rest with some wine and sweets. I'll send the girls to attend you right away. Davion watched her leave and thought, fuck, high-class brothels really do it right. Service like this beats anything back home. He waved her off. She bowed and closed the door softly. Davion unbuckled his sword, dropped his pack, stripped naked, and walked to the table in the corner. A bottle of fine wine and plates of delicate sweets waited. He poured a cup, sipped, and paired it with the sweet treats. Road fatigue melted away. A soft knock came soon after. Come in, Davion said, voice lazy. The door opened. 5 stunning girls in sheer, butterfly wing veils entered in a line, each carrying a wooden bucket of steaming water. They poured it gracefully into the large tub in the center of the room. Shattaya came last with a basin of milk, slowly pouring it in. She grabbed a handful of fresh petals from a basket and scattered them over the surface. The scent grew richer. She stepped up beside Davion, an ambiguous smile on her lips. "My Lord Davion, since it's your first time here, I picked our 5 best girls. See which one you like." She motioned for them to line up in front of him. Shattaya moved to the first, a tall, dark-skinned girl. "This is my daughter, Aliaya." Aliaya stood a little shorter than her mother, wearing loose transparent silk with a colorful beaded belt that hugged her slim waist. She had her mother's delicate features but softer, small, refined face. Most striking were those ridiculously long, perfect legs. Davion nodded. Shattaya continued, pointing to the others. "This is Denise, full-figured, gentle and attentive. This is Tilly, pale skin, doll-like face, absolutely adorable. This is Mary, from Volantis, captivating green eyes, porcelain-pale skin, long silver hair. And last, our Dornish beauty, petite, healthy wheat-colored skin, passionate and wild." Each girl stepped forward as introduced. Some spun slowly to show off their bodies. Others leaned in and planted soft, warm kisses on his cheek. Davion soaked in the attention, a satisfied smile spreading across his face. Shattaya watched his expression and asked with a smile, "My Lord Davion, which one would you like to keep you company?" Davion slowly raised his hand, then clenched it into a fist. "I want all of them." Shattaya's face broke into the knowing, seductive smile she'd expected. She bowed slightly. "As you wish, my lord. Enjoy your evening." She turned to leave and give them privacy. Davion's voice stopped her, stronger this time. "I said all of them." Shattaya froze mid-step, smile flickering for a split second. Then it returned, even more sultry. She turned back and curtsied deeply. "Understood, my Lord Davion. I'll go make arrangements and be right back to join you." Inside she thought, the boy still looks innocent. He won't last long, probably just excited. She had no idea it would be an all-night marathon. The next day at noon, warm sunlight spilled across the big satin bed. Davion slowly opened his eyes. The scent of flowers and warm girl skin filled his nose. He was pillowed on one girl's soft, flat stomach, several slender white legs tangled around him. He stretched, gently pushed the legs off, and rolled out of bed in one smooth motion. He flexed his limbs. Bones popped lightly. Last night's indulgence hadn't drained him, it had wiped away every bit of road exhaustion. The door opened softly. Shattaya walked in carrying a bucket of hot water, now wearing a simple dark silk dress. She looked up and saw Davion stretching naked in the sunlight. The light traced every hard line of muscle, broad shoulders, defined chest, powerful build. Davion heard her, turned with an easy smile, and nodded toward her. "Morning, boss lady." Shattaya's gaze lingered on his body for a second. She clicked her tongue softly, but her eyes flashed with genuine admiration. She gave him a playful glare. "My Lord Davion, you're finally awake. Come wash up, the water's ready." Davion walked over grinning. Before she could react, he put his hands on her shoulders and pressed her down into a squat. "You worked hard all night, boss lady. Can't let you do everything alone. We should clean up together. Relax a bit." Half an hour later Shattaya had lunch ready. She woke the 5 girls still sleeping on the bed, gave them quiet instructions, and sent them out. After years running the place, she knew exactly how to handle clients, close enough to keep them happy, distant enough to keep the rules. Hit the sweet spot and they kept coming back. Davion sat at the table enjoying lunch. Casual and free, no fancy noble manners. Left hand tearing into roasted chicken, right hand holding a wine cup. Big bites, big swallows. Yet nothing crude about it. Every move carried natural authority and presence. Shattaya sat beside him, personally pouring his wine and serving food. Her eyes kept drifting to him, curiosity growing. She still couldn't connect the elegant young lord in front of her with the wild, dragon-like man from last night. She couldn't hold it in anymore. "My Lord Davion, you're here for the king's tourney, aren't you?" Davion chewed a mouthful of chicken, looked up, and nodded openly. "That's right, for the tourney. Heard the champion's purse is huge. House Riveran's been struggling. We need the coin, so I figured I'd come try my luck." He spoke about his house's troubles plainly, no hiding. That calm honesty surprised Shattaya. She couldn't help laughing, her eyes sweeping over his body suggestively. I believe with a body like yours, my Lord Davion, you'll make a big splash at the tourney and place high. Davion looked at her, half-smiling. You don't think I went all out just handling 6 women last night, do you? Shataya's smile froze for a beat, then came back stronger. She knew exactly what he meant. Last night the 6 of them had begged for mercy or they wouldn't have been able to move this morning. She dropped the teasing tone and asked seriously. By the way, my Lord Davion, if you're here for the tourney, why didn't you bring armor? That little pack you carried didn't look like it held any. Davion set down his knife and fork. I was just about to ask you that. Where's the best blacksmith in King's Landing? I need them to make me a proper set of armor. Shataya answered immediately. If you want the best, go to Tobmot's forge on Steel Street. His family has been smiths for generations. Their armor is strong, durable, and beautifully made. Plenty of noble knights use him. His shop is the biggest one on Steel Street. You can't miss it. Davion raised an eyebrow, satisfied. He grabbed a napkin, wiped his mouth and hands casually, then stood and strapped his sword to his hip. He pushed the door open and stepped out, then stopped. The 5 girls from last night stood quietly in the corridor, looking a little awkward. In the middle was the Valyrian-looking one with green eyes and long silver hair. She was holding out a handful of silver stags. Chapter 18. Gendry the Bull. The Valyrian girl stepped forward carefully, both hands holding out the silver stags. She offered them to Davion with hopeful eyes and a soft, sweet voice. My Lord Davion, these are for you. Her smile was bright and genuine, full of real joy. The other 4 girls stood beside her, grinning expectantly, eyes shining as they waited for him to accept the gift. Davion looked at the coins, confused. Shataya's face changed instantly, her heart clenched. She knew this tradition from the cheaper brothels. Girls sometimes gave money back to a client who had pleased them, a gesture of genuine thanks. But those places served common folk. This man was the Earl of Harrenhal, a high-born lord. 20 silver stags from 5 working girls might look like charity, or worse, an insult, to someone of his rank. Shataya panicked and snapped at the girls. What are you doing? Put that away right now. The smiles vanished from their faces. They had never seen Shataya this sharp before and froze, unsure what to do. Shataya stepped forward to push them out of the way, but Davion's hand caught her arm. He kept his warm smile and spoke softly to the girl holding the coins. These silver stags, they're really for me. The girls nodded quickly, relief and smiles returning. One of them found her courage. My lord, we were really happy. Really comfortable. Serving you was special. Davion laughed, voice playful. So you're paying me for my services? Yes, they chorused, then burst into giggles. They had seen plenty of arrogant nobles over the years, but Davion was different, bold without being cruel, strong without being rough. He had treated them with a respect none of them expected. That was why they pooled every silver stag they had. Davion chuckled and took the coins. He weighed them in his palm, more than 20. Their entire savings. He grinned. Looks like if House Riveran ever falls and I'm desperate, I can always hire myself out as a male escort to noble ladies. At least I know I'm good at the job. The girls howled with laughter. Only queens and duchesses could afford you, my lord. One teased. Davion waved a hand, still laughing. The queen, no thanks. I like my head where it is. King Robert might take it if I get too close to his wife. He slipped the silver stags into his pocket. I'll keep these, and your service last night. I was very satisfied. He reached into his shirt, pulled 20 gold dragons from his inventory, and pressed them into the Valyrian girl's hands. These are my thanks to all of you. I'm staying in King's Landing for a while. Keep the quality up and I'll make it worth your while. The girls stared at the gold in shock. 20 gold dragons could buy all 5 of them outright in this world. The Valyrian girl spoke first, voice trembling with excitement. My Lord Davion, I'll stay with you the whole time you're here. I won't take any other clients. Me too, the others echoed at once. Shataya finally breathed out, tension draining from her shoulders. Thank the gods this young lord didn't have the usual noble stink of arrogance. Otherwise these girls would have been in real trouble. She shooed them gently. All right, enough. My Lord Davion has business to handle. Don't keep him. The 5 girls followed Davion all the way to the brothel door, reluctant to let him go. Only when he stepped into the street did they finally stop, waving and calling after him. Davion walked through King's Landing's winding streets, glanced at the silver stags in his pocket, and shook his head with a small smile. Even in another world I still can't break the habit of trying to save the girls. Something about seeing them struggle just gets to me. He pushed the thought aside and followed Shataya's directions toward Baylor's Sept. Steel Street ran right beside it. The closer he got, the worse the smell became: shit, rotting food, open sewers. He wrinkled his nose until he turned onto Steel Street itself. The stench faded, replaced by the sharp bite of coal smoke and hot iron. Tobmot's forge stood out immediately. Biggest frontage on the whole street, 2 stories tall. Finished armor, weapons, and shields were displayed out front like trophies. Davion pushed open the heavy wooden door. The shop was dim and empty. No one came to greet him. From the forge room came a rough shout. "Gendry, you lazy little shit. We've got a customer. Get out here and do your job." A tall, powerfully built boy stumbled out, pushed from behind. He had clear blue eyes, thick black hair, broad shoulders, and wore rough clothes stained with charcoal. Youth still clung to his face, but there was a stubborn set to his jaw. Davion heard the name and took one look at him. Recognition clicked instantly. This was Gendry, one of King Robert's many bastards. In the stories he would become a valuable piece on the board, one of the last living male Baratheon bloodlines. Right now he was just an apprentice getting yelled at every day. Gendry muttered a curse back toward the forge, then turned and forced a polite smile as he approached Davion. "Hello, my lord, what can I help you with today? I need a full set of quality armor." Davion's tone stayed calm. He didn't treat the boy any differently because of who his father was. Gendry nodded quickly. "Right this way, my lord. We have plenty of finished pieces, every style. You can pick whatever you like." Davion shook his head. "I don't want ready-made. I need your master to forge a custom set. And I need it fast, for the tourney." Gendry blinked, then nodded again. "Understood. One moment, please." He bowed and hurried back into the forge. Shouting erupted inside, angry words mixed with Gendry's quick replies, then it quieted. A moment later Gendry returned with a bald, middle-aged smith. The man's white beard was stained black from the forge, his face and hands covered in tiny burn scars. Tobmot looked Davion up and down, eyes catching the 9 black bats on his cloak. His sharp expression softened slightly. "So you're the one who wants armor, my lord?" "That's right, and it has to be finished before the tourney. No delays." Tobmot frowned, thinking, 6 days left. That's tight. A full knight's harness with chainmail and shield will cost extra for the rush. Davion didn't hesitate. "Fine, money isn't the issue as long as the quality is there." Tobmot thumped his chest. "You've come to the right place, my lord. Tobmot's the best smith in King's Landing. My armor won't let you down. Full plate, chainmail, and shield, 4 gold dragons total. 2 up front as deposit." Davion reached into his pocket and pulled out 4 gold dragons, handing them straight to Gendry. "No deposit needed. Your shop isn't going anywhere." "How long?" Tobmot stared at the coins for a second, then grinned. "No fancy engraving or family crest. 3 days and it'll be ready." Davion nodded. "Done. I'll be back in 3 days." Chapter 19. The Imp and Littlefinger. After settling the armor order, Davion felt a spark of curiosity. King's Landing was one of the greatest cities in Westeros, the beating heart of power in the 7 kingdoms. Even though he'd heard how filthy and chaotic it was, he still wanted to walk the streets himself and see what the legendary capital really looked like. The moment he stepped out of Steel Street, reality hit him like a bucket of ice water. Narrow alleys choked with people, raw sewage running in open gutters, the stench of shit, rotting food, and dust slamming straight into his nose. It was far worse than he'd imagined. He lasted maybe 5 minutes before giving up, wrinkling his nose in disgust, and heading straight back to Shataya's brothel. The second he pushed open the heavy doors, the rich perfume inside washed the street filth out of his lungs and eased the tension in his shoulders. He had barely stepped into the hall when the scene at the round table caught his eye. Shataya stood beside it, head slightly bowed, posture perfectly respectful. Across from her sat a man in his 30s with a neat little mustache and a false smile that never quite reached his eyes. Everything about him screamed cunning calculation. Davion was about to call out to Shataya when she shot him a quick, subtle look, clearly telling him to go upstairs right now. He paused, took a few slow steps forward, and that's when he noticed the second man. A chair with its back to him held a figure so small it had been hidden. A dwarf. His noticeably smaller hands rested casually on the armrests. The dwarf and the mustached man both caught Shataya's glance. The man with the mustache turned first, eyes narrowing as they landed on Davion. When he spotted the 9 black bats of House Riveran on Davion's cloak, his expression turned strange. Then the dwarf suddenly leaned out from behind the chair, staring straight at him. He had an oversized head on narrow shoulders, a high forehead, mismatched eyes, one black, one green, and sparse blonde hair plastered to his scalp. A messy beard of brown and gold covered his chin. The overall effect was grotesque and ugly. If Davion hadn't known someone was there, that sudden face would have startled him. The dwarf grinned, showing crooked teeth. "Shattaya, who's this? Your new customer. Looks like a noble brat." Shattaya immediately switched to a fawning smile and bowed. "Lord Tyrion, you have such a sharp eye. This is Lord Davion. He only arrived in King's Landing yesterday and is a new guest at the house." Tyrion. Davion repeated the name in his head while studying the dwarf more carefully. So this is the famous Lannister imp. Hard to believe someone who looks this ugly is supposed to be the smartest man in his generation. But he is the most intelligent Lannister of his time. Tyrion pushed himself up on the chair arms and stood on the seat so he could see over the back. He looked Davion up and down. "So this is the guest who booked all 5 of your best girls for himself." His eyes flicked over Davion's build and he snorted. "With that body, he looks only slightly stronger than average. You really think he could handle those 5 beauties?" Davion had grown noticeably stronger since waking up, but in clothes he still just looked fit, not the hulking size of Esser Villywood. Shattaya pressed her lips together, an ambiguous smile playing on her face. She didn't say a word, but her expression said everything. Tyrion was far too sharp to miss it. His face lit up with exaggerated surprise. "Boss lady, don't tell me those 5 girls weren't enough and you had to join in yourself." He grabbed the wine pitcher on the table, poured himself a full cup of fruit wine, and waved Davion over enthusiastically. "Whoa, little brother, get over here. You have to teach me your secrets. How the hell did you satisfy those women so completely that they're turning down my business just to stay with you?" He turned to the mustached man beside him, voice suddenly casual. "Baelish, you see, even Shattaya keeps refusing you. You might as well give up. We nobles come here to relax in peace. We don't want the girls spreading our bedroom secrets to outsiders. Am I right? So why don't you run along and stop interrupting our fun?" Tyrion's words were blunt. Shattaya's brothel had become the favorite haunt of King's Landing's nobles precisely because it was safe. A true sanctuary. Littlefinger's establishment was the opposite. It was both a moneymaker and an intelligence network. Anything said or done between the sheets was overheard and reported to him. Within a day he would know every detail about a man, down to how many hairs were on his ass. Davion's gaze settled on Littlefinger and his guard went up immediately. This was Petyr Baelish, one of the most dangerous schemers in the entire Game of Thrones. His real power wasn't in brilliant plans, it was in having no limits. He would lie, betray, and use anyone, even the woman he claimed to love most in the world, without hesitation. People like that were the most dangerous. Davion made up his mind right then: stay away from this kind of man. No entanglements. Too much trouble. Littlefinger didn't look the least bit offended by Tyrion's dismissal. His false smile stayed perfectly in place as he stood. "Tyrion, you misunderstand. I'm simply trying to expand my business interests. After all, our good King Robert has left quite a few holes in the royal treasury that need filling. What else can a man in my position do?" He turned to Shattaya. "I'm not giving up on buying this brothel, Shattaya. The day you change your mind, come find me. I'll make you a very generous offer." He gave Shattaya and Tyrion a graceful nod, then turned and walked straight toward Davion. He stopped in front of him, smile growing even more insincere. "Lord Davion Riveran, I've heard so much about you. Such a promising young man. I wish you great success in the upcoming tourney. May you take the champion's purse." Davion's mind sharpened. He caught the hidden meaning instantly. A minor lord who had only arrived in King's Landing yesterday, yet Littlefinger already knew his identity, his purpose, and even his recent exploits in the Riverlands. He was making it clear, in this city, nothing escaped Petyr Baelish's eyes. Davion wasn't afraid, he was just wary of the hassle. He knew exactly how these schemers operated, they never struck directly. They whispered, manipulated, and turned others into weapons. The victim often never saw the knife coming. Davion was strong enough that he doubted anyone could kill him face to face, but he had no way to read minds. One day the person smiling beside him might put a blade in his back. The thought flashed through his head and he immediately plastered on an enthusiastic smile, pretending to be flattered. Lord Baelish, I never imagined a humble Earl of Harrenhal like me would be remembered by someone of your stature. The honor is mine. Littlefinger gave a mysterious smile. Lord Davion, your deeds have been the biggest story in the Riverlands for the past month. I greatly admire both your cunning and your courage. Davion laughed coldly inside. Anyone who believed a single word that came out of Littlefinger's mouth was a fool. He waved a hand modestly. You flatter me, my lord. What I did was nothing but childish tricks. In front of you and Lord Tyrion here, it's hardly worth mentioning. Chapter 20. Pure Stats Monster. The news that Davion had intimidated House Vance only spread quietly among the minor nobles around Harrenhal. It didn't make much noise. By all logic, the great lords in King's Landing wouldn't even notice such a petty squabble in some backwater Riverlands fief unless they specifically sent spies to gather information there. Especially since Littlefinger was busy as Master of Coin, drowning in the crown's massive debts and the financial disaster of the Seven Kingdoms. He shouldn't have spared time to care about some unknown fallen lord. But Littlefinger knew, and he knew every detail. Davion thought it through. Either Littlefinger had already fixed his eyes on the Riverlands and nothing there escaped his network, or his brothel-based intelligence web already stretched across the entire realm, fine enough to catch even the smallest rumors. Either possibility proved that Littlefinger had already drawn a clear map of his future plans, every step calculated in advance. Littlefinger looked at Davion's humble expression and felt satisfied. He relaxed inside. Looks like I was overthinking it. Even if this Davion is a little braver and smarter than the rumors say, he's still just a minor fallen lord. His little changes won't affect King's Landing or my plans one bit. With that settled, Littlefinger lost all interest in Davion. A nobody lord wasn't worth his time. He gave Tyrion a slight nod, kept his false elegant smile, and walked out of the brothel. The conversation between Davion and Littlefinger had been full of hidden barbs that Tyrion completely missed. He was curious and wanted to ask, but right now something far more important occupied his mind, learning Davion's special techniques for conquering women. After all, Tyrion really loved whoring. Once Littlefinger was gone, Tyrion's face lit up with an eager smile. He waved Davion over enthusiastically. That annoying bastard finally left. Come sit down, little brother. You have to teach me your secrets today. How the hell did you make Shataya's girls so obsessed with you that they're turning down other clients? Shataya, go grab some girls and bring them over. We need drinks and entertainment. Davion laughed to himself. What special technique did he have? Back in his old life he was just an ordinary guy. After crossing over, it was purely the dragon blood in his veins that had turned his energy and stamina into something ridiculous. Pure Stats Monster. Nothing more, but he was genuinely interested in Tyrion. This dwarf looked like a carefree playboy addicted to pleasure, but in truth he was loyal, meticulous, and brilliant. Even when stuck in the mud he kept his bottom line. His political skill far surpassed anyone else in House Lannister. His sense of family honor was extremely strong. Yet his cold, ruthless father Tywin, his arrogant and domineering sister Cersei, and even his seemingly close brother Jaime had step by step pushed him into the abyss and personally cut every tie he had to the family. Davion calculated silently. This kind of man was perfect to become a loyal minister. If he ever rose high enough, even sat on the Iron Throne, Tyrion would be the ideal choice for Hand of the King. Even though he was still just a fallen earl being bullied by his own vassals, Davion had never doubted his future. He had crossed into this chaotic world. If he didn't seize the chance to fight for his own empire, it would be a waste of this second life. His goal had never been just reviving Harrenhal. He wanted to carve out his own piece of the Seven Kingdoms. Thoughts flowing, Davion put on a cheerful smile, walked to the table, and sat down. He nodded to Tyrion. Thank you for the compliment, Lord Tyrion. Shataya, seeing how warmly Tyrion treated Davion, finally let out the breath she'd been holding. She had been secretly worried that Tyrion, who cared about face and loved beautiful women, might use this chance to make trouble for Davion since Davion had taken the girls he wanted. Now it looked like she had overthought it. Shataya smiled and bowed. Please chat, my lords. I'll go call the girls right away. Tyrion waved her off, but his eyes stayed locked on Davion. He was clearly impatient. Davion felt a bit uncomfortable under that stare and joked. Lord Tyrion, if I didn't know your reputation I'd think you were interested in me as a man with the way you're staring. Tyrion immediately made a disgusted face and waved a hand. Please. I have zero interest in men. In this life I'm only interested in pretty girls. He looked Davion up and down, puzzled. You're nothing special to look at. Throw you in a crowd and nobody would notice. And your house. His eyes landed on the Riveran sigil on Davion's sleeve and he shook his head. Pretty average, honestly. That was already giving plenty of face. House Riveran had long since fallen. Average was generous, it was downright mediocre, not even ranked among the nobles of the Seven Kingdoms. I just don't get it. Why are the girls so obsessed with you? Davion shrugged, a smug smile on his face. I don't know either. Maybe I'm just naturally charming. You'd have to ask the girls themselves. Tyrion clicked his tongue dismissively. If you don't want to say, fine. Stop acting mysterious. Doesn't matter. As your senior, I can share a secret with you. It's guaranteed to make those girls lose their minds over you. As he spoke, he flipped his wrist and a stack of gleaming gold dragons appeared on the table. Gold dragons. There's not a girl in this world who can resist the lure of gold dragons. Very convenient. House Lannister has more of these than we know what to do with. Ha ha ha. At that moment Shattaya walked in with a group of girls in sheer veils. The 5 girls who had spent the night with Davion lit up the second they saw him. They hurried over with light steps, faces full of joy. My Lord Davion, you're back. The Valyrian girl Mary and Shattaya's daughter Aeliaya sat on either side of Davion, affectionately linking their arms with his. The other 3 stood behind him, gently massaging his shoulders and back. Tyrion's laughter died in his throat. His smile froze. Watching the girls cling to Davion so intimately while completely ignoring him, a strong wave of jealousy rose in his chest. He gritted his teeth inwardly. Damn it, what the hell kind of magic does this kid have? Read more in Patreon Cavaleather. Game of Thrones. Archer's Ordinary Life. To be continued.